Welcome, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission. Today, we're reviewing On-Ramp 2021 local fellowship proposals for the Northwest Indiana cohort. I'm Maya Michelson, and I'm Executive Director of the IAC. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2021. The panelists are meeting on Zoom, and the public is observing on YouTube. At this time, we'd like the panelists and the staff to introduce themselves. So panelists, please give us your name, where you are, and tell us a little bit more about what you do. Chapin, I'm gonna start with you.
Hi there, Chapin Schnick, Contracts, Operations, and IT Assistant for the Indiana Arts Commission, and I'm here in a tech role today.
Thanks, Chapin. Adrian.
Hi, I'm Adrian Warren. I'm Digital Sales Manager and Local Sales Manager for Radio 1 Indianapolis. I have a history in film and entertainment, working with major gospel labels as well as working with some prominent film.
Thanks, Adrian, so much for being with us. Darren.
I'm Darren Morrell. My pronouns are I'm coming to you from Eastern Delaware County, which is ancestral Kickapoo land and traditional Lenape land. I am a professional theater artist and the co-director of Main Street Artists.
Thanks so much for being with us, Darren. Liam.
Good afternoon. I'm Liam Bonner, the Executive Director of the Indianapolis Symphonic Choir here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Prior to my role here, I was in development for 3 years with the Houston Symphony, and prior to that, I had a 10-year professional opera career.
Thanks so much for being with us, Liam. Lexi.
Hi, my name is Lexi Highland, and I am a freelance film editor and do a lot of sound design as well. I'm a proud Boilermaker and love Indiana, so proud to be here.
Thanks so much, Lexi. And Billy.
He hasn't made it in yet.
Okay, got it. We'll be joined here in just a few minutes hopefully by Billy Easton, who's from Goshen, who's a performing artist and artist developer. Hopefully Billy will be able to join us here in just a minute for the panel. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. This panel is designed to gather feedback that will help the applicants strengthen their fellowship project to advance their career. The discussion will also help us identify any modifications that the applicant might need to make before their fellowship project moves forward. First, I'll announce the application that we'll review. I'll ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide advice that they note that might help strengthen the fellowship project, focusing on the evaluation criteria from their perspective. Panelists, just as a quick reminder, you don't need to recap the application. Everyone's read it. Just start with your comments on this particular application. And then after the first reader is concluded, then I'll ask the second reader to add any additional comments they might have related to the application. And then once they've concluded, we'll open it to the full panel for any additional comments. We're not looking for consensus here. We're just looking to hear the great feedback from this great variety of panelists that we've assembled for today's panel discussion. So if a panelist has a conflict of interest, and we do have one panelist who has a conflict of interest, we will put them in the virtual waiting room while that proposal is being discussed and then bring them back in once it's concluded. So once each application has been discussed by the panel, we'll ask the panelists to update their comments in the online system, and then we'll move on to the next application. Occasionally, based on the discussion, panelists may want to revise a comment that they made previously. So we give them a couple of minutes to do that. So, and just FYI, and I think the panelists know this already, changes to the online system save automatically. So are there any questions? All right, fantastic. Let's start. Our first proposal today is from Addie Hurston. Liam, you are the first reader for this application.
Thank you, Maya. So in my notes, I thought there were really great creative work samples and a solid resume of experience. I thought it was very wise to learn / figure out how to increase The passive income, should one be able to work or interact in person? I don't know, say there's another pandemic, God forbid. Incredibly clear and focused plan around tasks, timeline, who is involved, and materials. And the only thing that I might suggest at the launch party, the art classes, lectures, etc., that they possibly be provided free to the community, since the project itself would be funded through this grant. Free access to the community is always a great thing, if possible, to provide.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Liam. Any additional comments from the full panel on Addie's proposal? And just jump in. Don't need to raise your hand, just leap forward. Any additional comments?
I'll just reiterate, I thought it was an outstanding application, very detailed, clearly communicated. The one, and I think Liam kind of touched on this, the one caution that I have, and it doesn't kill an application, but when listing income from potential future merchandise sales, obviously those are never guaranteed income items. When I'm doing a project where I'm hoping for future sales, I always list in my budget personal contribution, and then have the plan to then reimburse myself that contribution should those future sales pan out.
Thank you, Darren. Any additional comments from panelists? All right, seeing none and hearing none, take a second and update any comments you have in the online system for Addie's proposal. We'll take a second, let you do that. And then our next proposal is from Alberta Emmanuel Sosa. So if you could take a second and pull that application up, get that in front of you. We'll give you a beat or two to get that in front of you. I believe, Darren, you are the first reader for that one.
All right. I felt that the statement of creative work was very concise and compelling. The goal of increasing professional networking and learning from other filmmakers on the circuit was really clear and well stated. In the feasibility section, the timeline is excellent, but I found the budget needed some work. It's excellent in terms of detail, but the totals don't match. The income and expenses don't match, and that's kind of a baseline requirement. It's also unclear what the in-kind contribution of lodging is, since there was lodging included as an expense, but then also included as in-kind, and there was no sort of narrative explanation why it was appearing in two different places on the budget. So that lack of match on the income and expense totals is something that really needs to be addressed. In terms of community engagement, I felt there were a number of really thoughtful ways that the applicant detailed in terms of both engaging in dialogue as well as contributing to the various identified communities completion of the project. So I felt like that section was well addressed. And those conclude my comments.
Thanks, Darren. Second reader for this application is Lexi.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of good stuff in here just about kind of future goals, and it's clear that, you know, there's a lot of research done in terms of the festival route and things of that nature, and they sound all like great places to get started and meet people. I just made some comments just about some local people, especially in the animation and like graphic department. That would be good people to reach out to, because there's a lot of, you know, festivals are great, but there's also a lot of good local people too. So I think, you know, with some of that time and money from what, you know, is learned on the road, can definitely contribute to what they bring back and plan to do in Indianapolis if that's their choice. So yeah, and then just kind of the same comments as Darren with just the money, making sure those kind of line up and it's clear where that's coming from and how it all totals to be the same. So other than that, yeah, good application. And as a filmmaker, I love it. So it's good to see you get out there and do that.
Great, thank you, Lexi. So it's an opportunity now for other panelists to jump in with some additional comments and thoughts on this proposal. So Liam, jump in.
Yeah, I agree with everything that has just been said. I would add, when I went to the link provided for artistic documentation, it was protected by Google Drive, and I was unable to view it until I was granted permission, which happened relatively quickly because I was in the system. But I just suggest always verifying your settings before sharing the link. Maybe recommend saving or sharing it on YouTube where it's a little bit more accessible. But really lovely work once I was able to access it.
Great, thank you, Liam. Sam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I did speak with this artist about the budget discrepancy, and he's aware. And Paige and I just decided he can fix that after this meeting. So we've already talked to him about that. Good catch.
Thanks, Sam. Any additional comments for this applicant?
This is just a good recommendation. I echo what the other panelists have said. Whenever you're on that festival track, especially because you're using it to network, just as a pointer, just make sure that the applicant has a good collection system and that they're charting the interaction of the people that they're going to meet so that you know how to follow up and what your action point is with them, because they really believe the festival is going to be important for their progression. I just want to make sure they don't miss that moment and that they're very intentional about how they track and engage while at festivals.
Great, thank you, Adrian. Additional comments on this? Okay, seeing and hearing none, take a second, please, and update any comments that you might have had for Alberto Sosa. I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to do that and then to pull up our next application, which is for Brianna Petty Olivares. Can take a second and do those two things. Brianna's will be the next one we review. Okay, Brianna Petty Olivares. Darren, you are second reader on that, so I'm going to ask you to step in, if you would, with comments on this.
Sure. I thought this was an outstanding application in terms of goals and the description of both the artist and the project. Really thoughtful and detailed description of the project and the impact on the artist's career. I think the art form is very unique, and that the applicant's voice and perspective, as well as their passion for this particular form, are really evident in the samples and in the resume and the narrative. So I thought that entire section was really well done. The budget looks good. It's well detailed. The tasks and collaborators are well defined, but what I was missing and what would have made a much stronger application, in my opinion, would be a detailed timeline. I didn't really see any sense of timeline aside from the Earth Day 2022. There's not a mention of any specific dates in relation to the tasks being undertaken. So I think a stronger application would include a detailed timeline with specific dates and estimated completion date of each of those. In terms of community engagement, I thought there was obvious thought and care put into the ways that the applicant is going to engage in both communicating and enriching the various communities identified through the project, and as well as ways in which they'll engage others for input and collaboration on each of the goals. And those complete my comments.
Thanks so much, Darren. Any other comments from other panelists? Okay, hearing none. We've had a panelist join. So Billy, if you can hear me, if you'd unmute yourself and just introduce yourself so that folks know who is joining us on the panel today. Hi, Billy.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Billy Jean Easton, and you know, better late than never.
We're glad to have you, Billy. Thank you so much.
I'm glad that I made it.
Appreciate you being here. We are, so again, hearing no other comments on Brianna Olivares. Take a second, if you could, to finalize those comments. And our next application that we'll review is Carmen Vincent. So if you would take a second and get that one ready, folks. Adrian, you are the first reader on that application.
Thank you. My computer was moving just a little slower. I apologize. Oh, so I thought this was a very good application. I think it's very good that the applicant did do a lot of research to find out how many festivals that are out there, and to consciously think that maybe only 10% would be reached. However, I think it may be stronger for the applicant to narrow that down. Only because as I just looked at the list that was provided, there were potentially conflicts of interest between the different festivals. So, you know, by identifying which festival was most important, they could streamline the intention to apply, as well as to double check on some of the additional costs associated with it. All of the particular festivals did not use Film Freeway as a way to submit. So with respect to that, with some of the festivals, there are some additional costs that are associated with the application beyond just the application fee. And that wasn't allotted for within the request. However, if they narrowed down what they were looking for, that may help them. I also think that it would help when the artists consider narrowing down the festival track, because there's a great undertaking with approaching festivals, more than just the application process itself. And because the applicant was running a very lean budget based upon whether or not they would be accepted, I think they don't leave room for themselves to give a good presentation should they be accepted. Because we know that once you get there, obviously there's the marketing that is involved once you're there, there's the packaging of what you're doing once you're there, and there's also the things that are involved in networking once you're there. You know, Mini Festival has more opportunities than just the showing itself. There are the networking functions. And since networking was a significant part of the applicant's expectation, they need to give themselves that space within their application to allow for that accommodation. Those would be my comments.
Great, Adrian, thank you. I'll now open it up to the full panel. Other comments about Carmen's application?
I just had a brief note that I remember making just in terms of like post-production for the film, which, you know, it's a lot of my world and stuff. And it's always a good idea to, you know, think ahead about, you know, taking this to somewhere, but also having a team, whether it's an indie or beyond, of colorists, sound designers, mixers. So there's a lot of like up heavy front stuff at the beginning, I felt like, but it's always good to, I think, keep that in mind. If there's just a small section in community engagement, you want to add additionally, like, you know, I've checked out these places or connected with the studio and indie to learn more about like the coloring or finishing process, that would just elevate, I think, the film to an even higher level. But love the whole idea of it. Oh, and also like the sponsorship route of, if there's maybe some organizations in town that can, take the film and promote it as a part of their business and the work they do. And so that's always, I don't know, that's something I found when I was in Indy that's very, very, very easy to do. It's such a small community in that sense where, you just start asking around and you can maybe find someone to help, set up like, I don't know, a food table, craft table, or, for a swap of, mention a thank you in the final film or something like that. So yeah, other than that, great application, but those are just a couple of my comments.
Thanks, Lexi. Any additional comments on this application? Okay, hearing none, if you would take a second and just finalize this application. The next application we are to review is for Diana Ensign. If you could pull that one up here and get it ready. Darren, I believe you're first reader for this one. So whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, this is an easy one. This is an outstanding application, and I do a lot of grant panel reviews, and this one hits all the marks. I had very little to nitpick about this. Great detail, specificity in the narrative, and the goals and the outcome are all clearly defined. The creative samples and resume are excellent. The feasibility, it was terrific. Great detail. If I had any one little thing to say is, this is a personal thing in a timeline. I like to see specific dates. These were kind of generalized dates that we got, although they were detailed and clearly outlined the project. I like to see exact dates. I thought that the community engagement was well understood and clearly communicated and outstanding. And I really have nothing else to add. So those are my comments.
Great, thanks, Darren. Any additional comments from the panel on this one?
I really echo what Darren just said, but what I also took away from this is the training that the ONREP recipients received. They really captured that, especially in the community involvement section. So I thought it was really good that the applicant was able to at least speak the language of the process. So I thought that was really good.
Great, thank you, Adrian. Any other comments from the panel? Okay, well, hearing none, take a sec if you would and just update any comments you might have on this application. And our next one is E. Victoria Eggleston. Lexi, you are first reader for this one, so whenever you're ready, we're ready for you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, this is another really good application. I made some initial comments just about good people to connect with that have kind of that same artistic tattoo illustration type of vibe in the city, that could be good mentors down the line that have figured out a way to have studio space and also travel and do gallery work. I love the idea that she had about, creating this Indianapolis Figure Guild, where it seems very well laid out. There's 12 figure drawing sessions during 2022, just very clear, precise, all the feasibility for the money and the budget, that all was laid out really well. Also, so the permission, yeah, so everything for models and the work, it looks like most of it is going towards the money to the studio space, which makes total sense if you're trying to do that. But I love the idea of, having artists come in and have a space to draw and do figure drawing, but then also the idea of having that be something that kind of is partnered with the idea of wanting to be a tattoo artist and go into illustration and beyond. I thought that was really cool. A really good way to, continue to work with local people, bring other artists involved, and also have some goals that are outside of that. So I loved the fusing of those ideas. So I think it was really well done, and the mapping out of the year seems like very, very straightforward. So good job.
Great. Thanks, Lexi. Any additional comments on this application? I'm sorry, Liam, you are second reader, so my apologies. Liam, let's hear from you first, and then we'll throw the door open. Sorry.
Sure, no worries at all. Lexi covered pretty much all of it. I agree with everything that she said. Just a little note, I believe that W-9s are only required if the contractor is paid more than $600 in a calendar year, so you may not have to worry about dealing with those based on the numbers I saw. And I love that the Near East Side of Indy is the location for the guild. 10 East Arts and Joanna Nixon, as you mentioned in the application, already very engaged with the local community, and I think it'd be a great connector for the growth of this guild.
Right. Thank you, Liam. Other additional comments on this application?
I had some. I thought it was a good application.
Thing I would say,
I'm sorry, Liam. Go ahead.
Was Liam done?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the additional comments I had, they're just minor things. For instance, I do think that from a marketing perspective, since the applicant is marketing in the digital space, that they consider other places beyond the actual platforms that they're using themselves to market. So I would consider using something like a Facebook or an Instagram or other networks that drive consumers there, maybe even considering creating a Facebook group or social group in spaces beyond where you can funnel people to this specific thing. I would also, I also may mention too that sometimes whenever we're marketing, or especially when we're building a group of people, we don't consider that it may take me reaching out to 100 people to get 10. And so very early on, my recommendation definitely would be for them to challenge themselves with monthly goals of making sure they make enough touch points to get themselves to the 15 people that they desire, as well as making sure they're building a database of rolling people, because just because you establish a group of 15 people don't mean the same 15 people are going to come every month, right? So outside of that, and that just aligns itself with the fact that they want to build a guild, but not that what they presented was bad. These are just the push points to take them to that next level of consideration.
Thanks, Adrian. Billy, did you have comments?
Yeah, well, the previous guy kind of just said what I was saying. I like the applicant has already previously been really engaged with the community and with just various officials. It seems the applicant already has a vast repertoire with engagement and just needs some structure and some physical means, and the applicant's in the proper place. It just needs to learn how to coordinate all those things. And just like he was saying previously too, the digital marketing and turning that into something that's virtual is going to be like paramount.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Billy. Any additional comments on this one? Okay, hearing none, take a second if you would, and finalize your comments for Eve Eggleston. Our next applicant is Ida Short. If you take a second and pull that application up. Liam, I believe you are the first reader, so whenever you're ready.
All right. So another good application. Additional goals. I wrote this note and I'm trying to re-understand what I wrote. The additional goals were previously listed in the application, but the budget is clearly only about the website goal, which is totally fine. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sorry that I'm having trouble remembering why I wrote that. But by having, oh, I see what I did. I'm so sorry. I jumped to feasibility. I'm not at the top of the goals. Forgive me. Let me start at the beginning. So the feedback with regards to goals, they were clear and reasonable. I think a website is of paramount importance for artists, even before the pandemic, now all the more so. And so I think it's smart to have built in extra time in the implementation of the project as well. So in the feasibility aspect, the additional goals were previously listed in the application, and the budget was about the website goal, which is completely fine. And then the community engagement, just the accessibility of the website for those interested in printmaking would more easily find this work.
Great, thank you, Liam. Second reader for this one is Darren.
Great. I agree with Liam. I think it's a strong application. A couple of things I would recommend in terms of grant writing. I think in the feasibility section, there might have been a stronger case had the expenses been a little more detailed instead of larger group expenses. Detail out those expenses a little bit and some narrative about how you might have arrived at those figures. And the other aspect is regarding the community engagement. There was certainly collaborative interaction listed with the people directly connected to the project. I think a stronger application would have included some broader community outreach ideas and focused a little less on how the community engagement would benefit the applicant and more so how the project would create a two-way conversation within the community. And those complete my comments.
Thank you, Darren. I'll open it up to other panelists. Other folks have comments on this application.
Yeah, this is Adrian, and my comments really kind of echo Darren. And I guess because I am a marketer, I think in a marketing person's eye. While upgrading the website is a great point, and the applicant definitely should do, the community engagement wasn't clear as to how they were going to pull people to see the site. And there was no dialogue that talked about how you were going to market an upgraded website. So there are phenomenal websites around the world, but no pathway that leads people to go to those phenomenal websites. And so while the website will benefit the applicant needs to consider what they are going to do to make sure that people in the community knows that it even exists or that it's been upgraded, right?
Okay. Thank you, Adrian. Additional comments? Okay, well, hearing none, take a second and finalize comments for Ida's application. Our next application for review is Jeff Hagan, and Darren, you're first reader there. So whenever you're ready, please start.
Okay. I felt that the work samples and resume presented were impressive and well done. And while the description of the main creative work and project goals are concise, they might benefit from some more detail. Certainly was concise, but I would have liked meat on the bone in terms of understanding more about the project. In the main description, it might have been a little more compelling to learn more about what makes the artist's voice and perspective unique in their field. And while the project goal of restoring a legacy and heritage to a community is a noble goal, I'm not sure how tangible and measurable such a broad goal might be. It might be difficult to achieve knowing that you've restored a legacy to a community. A stronger statement of that goal within an application might have listed a number of data-driven benchmarks, perhaps a certain number of books that are sold, or the coverage of the book in community and regional or national publications, the placement of the book in a certain number of galleries, etc. All of those data points might well add up to me and identifying that larger goal of seeing the heritage of the community recognized in a measurable way. In terms of feasibility, the timeline, again, I hate to keep harping on this, but it's just a personal thing for me. The specific dates, it's really important for me in a timeline. I guess for me as a grant reader, the very definition of timeline is a list of specific dates and times when tasks are going to be accomplished. So I always look for that and didn't see it here. Would also like some more detail about the printing, POD, which I understand is print on demand, but it's sort of undefined within the narrative of the application. And assuming that someone might not understand that POD means print on demand, a grant reader might be lost in that area. The budget looks good, except there seems to be no expense provided for the actual printing and distribution of the book, which I would think would be significant and seems to be a major tangible aspect of the project. In terms of community engagement, Nashville and Brown County are clearly the focus of the project, and the interviews with local residents and the outreach with the lectures and readings made for a really compelling community engagement process. So I thought that section was really well realized. And those complete my comments.
Thank you, Darren. Adrian, you are second reader on this application.
Wow, I feel like Darren is in my head. I feel like we're brain twins as we were analyzing this. So I'll try to find different points. But definitely, I just echo the whole being time bound. And I'm a little more lenient on being time bound, but I do think you should make things time bound. And I do think you should qualify, because while the applicant is doing pictures, example, if talking to two people, it takes 10 pictures, what is the conversations like to get you to the one drawing that you're going to include in the actual outcome? I don't think that is understood. Those type of things just kind of help you in terms of goal setting. If it takes me 50 people to do this to get to one, you got to average that into your time. That really kind of helps you with your time schedule. I agree as it relates to a production cost, like even if though it is print on demand, there is production cost that is associated as well. There's an in-kind budget that's listed on the application that kind of throws off the whole overall budget thing, because it's not really defined what this in-kind budget it talks about discounting for printing of the book, and so I didn't know if that's what they were doing in terms of the clarification on that needs to be better defined. I also would suggest that the artist has a target goal in mind, and since interacting with some of those sources will help with the completion of the project, they provide initial platform for the community engagement. But I do think that with that, it helps to build whether or not it will be a service. And I think my contemporary kind of shared that same thing. So those are just areas that I would complete. But I thought definitely a great thought. I think it's honorable to want to record history and keep something that we have for posterity's sake.
Thanks, Adrian. Sam, you got your hand up before I open the floor up to other panelists.
Yeah, I think hopefully this clarifies what wonderful reviewers are bringing up on this one. I don't have the application in front of me, but I definitely remember talking with him. He might have been trying to say that he's using the grant to produce the manuscript and template of the book, and that he was just going to print them on demand out of his own money. And I do remember him saying he was, and I don't remember if this is in the application or not, but this was going to be a super small, going to be a more expensive art type book. So very helpful comments from both of you, and I will chat with Jeff about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Any additional panelist comments on this application? Great discussion, by the way. You guys are amazing. Any other comments? All right, well, hearing none, if you take a second to finalize comments for Jeff Hagen's application. Our next applicant to be reviewed is Jessica Peterson Rogers. And if everyone will take a second and pull that application up in the online system. Billy, you're the first reader for that, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, let me see.
No rush.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, this very, very skilled, has already got a long history and career in what they're doing, and really knows where their goals are at and previous career path has led up to this moment. Yeah, this was a really good application to me, actually, because this applicant has achieved a lot of milestones and pretty well seasoned and has done a lot of the things already throughout the course of their career. What did I have? Yeah, the applicant's years and expertise show they know exactly the basic costs and startup costs to get moving. Like when I was looking at their costs and stuff, I was like, I can tell they've done this before. So they kind of know exactly what they need to do, you know. They had a very user easy timeline to complete the task month by month. Community engagement, a lot of previous community engagement activities that have already led to previous successes. And I can see they're applying a consistent pattern. I didn't really have, I learned a lot actually from seeing that this applicant already has experience and it's integrating with OnRamp. And, you know, that's like supercharged, you know, so this was a good application to me.
Thanks, Billy. Lexi, you are second on this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. One comment I did have, and I don't know if I'm just missing it, but it said there were attached several articles, but I only saw one image of a previous article. So I just made a note, you know, to maybe put those other ones on there. If you're, you know, gonna tell us you're gonna put it on there, like, you know, I'd love to see that and read the rest of them. So that was just my first comment. And I love the idea in general, and it's super community focused, it seems like, in a really cool way to engage students. And I'm a huge mentor-mentee fan, and so I just love the general idea. I was thinking for some of the like feasibility, and it's something that was kind of mentioned before, but the cost of making a literary magazine. I don't know much about that, but how that actually plays out in terms of cost for distribution, and especially if you're having kids involved, just kind of like the nitty-gritty details of what that looks like and how much it would cost to put that in production. Another comment I made was just kind of about you know, engaging the high school administrators and things like that. And I'm wondering if there's even, you know, down the line, just a further remark on, you know, if you're engaging students, administrators, and the local community, that this could actually be something that could evolve to other schools or other cities, you know, I'm a big fan of like a web type of program for long-term. If you want to own a publishing company, you know, having this is just the starting point. And so, you know, if you brought that to another city, that could help kids, or do another literary magazine in another local town, because you ran something successful in yours. I just think it's always good to think about down the line, engaging just, not just your community, but also other communities as well. I think that could be a really cool opportunity and benefit a lot of kids in the arts and students and stuff. So yeah, good job.
Thanks, Lexi. I'll open it up to other panelists. Other folks have comments on this application.
Hi, this is Adrian. I like some of the comments of some of my contemporaries, but I would push the applicant a little bit, only because we're not clear what particular age group of schools that they're going to. Is this middle schools? Is this high schools? And then we're really not clear as to where the actual instruction is going to take place. Is it their vision that it's going to take place during school hours? Because if it's taking place during school hours and it's not a part of the school curriculum of courses that the child has chosen, how are the children now being siphoned into the opportunity to be mentored? Or is this an after school program? I wasn't clear if this was during school hours or after school hours, and the school was then providing a platform for after school. So my thing there would be, how are you siphoning the kids inside of the opportunity to be mentored? And what if the school is then collecting students to make this happen? How is that happening? And that's just based upon just feasibility of how schools are operating now in terms of bringing outside resources to teach. I did notice too that in the community section, they talk about engaging obviously different parts. There's a part where they want to engage the child's parents, but again, not knowing if you're doing this in school hours, you really won't have direct conversation with the parents. So I know that the applicant sees this. I don't know that the application reflects the full goal of what they're wanting to accomplish there. And then the other thought would be the production cost. And I think they may be undershooting themselves on their travel budget, but it's not clear because I don't know how many schools you're visiting and how frequently you're going to the schools for the travel allotment. So those would be big concerns for me. And they're just push points just to make sure that the applicant really thinks through and communicates that.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Any additional comments on this one? Okay, hearing none, take a second if you would and finalize your comments for Jessica Rogers' application. Next application is Joseph Marvin Rowan. So take a second to pull that up if you would. Adrian, you are the first reader for that one.
It never opens up early whenever you're the one that's the first
right,
reader,
right? I know. True. Yes, it's a law of grant review. The application you need to review is never the one that you can get. Open.
No, right. I thought this applicant had clear vision. My only push would be the same thing that Darren and I have been talking about, is that they make things a little bit more time bound. And I think only time bound helps you capture yourself along the way. In the feasibility study, and I must put a point here. I think because people are now making more digital products available, that this is very in line with what's happening nowadays with digital projects. So I think that they're definitely in scope. I thought that they might need to dedicate more dollars toward microphones based upon some of their things. And I also think in terms of their community, because they are thinking about expanding in terms of performance venues, I would recommend that they look at the target venues of where they would like to be and see what the demands of those venues have for their performers, so that that can be a part of their goal setting in terms of what they need to do to meet the expectation to be able to perform in those venues. And I also recommend that, obviously, because they're producing music, that their music is a part of a performing rights organization, that they can take advantage of the classes that are available through those, whichever performing rights organization they're a part of. Often, many of them have classes of networking and things of that nature. I think that exposure would help them with the questions that they openly stated that they had about the process, and also put them in a position to also network about the product that they're producing as well.
Thank you, Adrian. Billy, you're second reader on this one.
I thought this applicant had a really cool, me being a musician myself, I thought he had a really cool, using items and making musical instruments and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. He's kind of been doing his thing for a while. I checked out his resume, and I don't have much to say about him. I think this applicant knows what he's doing. I think also open and receptive. Already making, like, the video he put out was really cool. So it's already pretty hip to, being in the virtual world. I think as far as community engagement for this applicant, like the nature of what this applicant does as far as doing festivals, and the nature of what this artist does is bring an audience in. So he's already really groomed with that. I think learning how to, I think he's got that together in the physical world. I think translating that into more in the digital world, which is probably going to require a video crew or some of that stuff down the line. But this was actually one of my favorite applicants, because I think the cost seemed very feasible. I see one of the other panelists said he might need more mics. He's a guy like this has got all this equipment. You never know what he's got. He knows what he needs next. He's kind of a gearhead. Might already got 3 or 4 other mics. You just need one other mic. So I don't know. I just felt a lot of trust with this because I'm a musician too. And I know when you don't have a lot as a musician, you know exactly what you need. So I think it'll just be more the business side, which is why this applicant is here. So.
Right. Thanks, Billy. Any additional comments for this one? Okay, hearing none. Take a second, if you would, and finalize any comments you've got for Joseph, please. Our next applicant is Madeline Richardson. So if folks could take a second and pull that application up in front of them. And Liam, you are first reader for that. So this one, so whenever you're ready.
All right. So I guess my biggest feedback is that I'd like to know more about the art and the artistic process, rather than about making a name and being famous. I know that that's a very attractive thing as an artist, but really focusing, at least in the grant application, more about the project itself than this goal of being famous. The feasibility, I'd say art shows like food trucks are always a gamble when it comes to income. And so, as previously mentioned on another application, I would recommend restructuring the budget and reducing the merchandise sales goal, because there's no guarantee there. And then again, with the community engagement, I'd like to see more focus on the art shows and how you as the artist are engaging with the community as opposed to your already internal network.
Great, thank you, Liam. Any other comments for this application? We don't actually have a second reader for this one. So
I would say that in a couple of places in the application, it would have been very helpful for me as a reader to have seen a researched and curated list of art shows they were planning to attend. that would have added both to the narrative of the goals, as specifically though about the feasibility. Without knowing what art shows we're talking about, many art shows require an entry fee or booth rental space, and neither of those items were accounted for in the budget and would be necessary depending on what shows you were looking at. And then, and also in terms of larger goals, which art shows you're going to attend is going to impact greatly whether you're able to actually achieve the personal goals that you set forth. And yeah, I would really echo Liam and reinforce the notion that in terms of community engagement, it really has got to be a two-way street where there's give and take in terms of value, whether it's tangible or intangible. It's got to be an engagement rather than just what the artist or the applicant might get from the community. And I would also say that it's I find it helpful to identify other artists in your field as colleagues rather than competitors. It just creates a more positive pathway for mutual benefit and peer-to-peer engagement, and sort of sends the broader message that there's room enough in the creative space of our society for everyone to express themselves through their art, and that there's not really a competition for eyes on the art. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Darren. Other comments on this application? Okay, hearing none. Take a second to finalize your comments on this application. Our next applicant has a conflict of interest. Liam Bonner, we're going to put you in panelist purgatory while we discuss this application, and then we'll bring you back. So looks like Liam has gone off to panelist purgatory. Our next application is Martin Clinch. Lexi, I have you as first reader on that one, so whenever you're ready.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, this is wants to make about, let's see, I think you said 20, yeah, 20 to 50 copies of run edition of comics using screen printing and digital printing. It seems to be big background love for this project, which is awesome. I think that's such a cool idea. The website clearly has his artistic style, which does match up with kind of the dreams and goals that are outlined in this project and beyond. So love that. I love quirky kind of 2D printing, anything in that art world. I just think is really interesting and fun, especially in a digital age. So I love the idea of having physical copies of, the books and things like that. The feasibility seems like it's all laid out in terms of the plan for month to month, how this will be made. The budget tips and expenses, kind of going back to just some previous comments too, where it's all about the process of making it. It seems in all the notes that are in the budget. And I'm wondering what the distribution or what other hidden costs might be there in the process of making this, or working with other artists if that's a goal too. And in community engagement, that was kind of one of my comments as well, is creating the local connections. It seems like that's an important thing to do, but if you're at Cathead Press, which he says that's it's another person in here that's planning on working in that area, maybe there's some more outlines you could do about working alongside some other artists. Can you do a page that's a collaboration of artists? But how can something like this at your time there go into something else? I think that's one thing that I've learned along the way, is just in the art world, it's really easy to get the big idea, but then it's also really important to think about what comes after that, to sustain your livelihood, and if you want to do this as a full-time job, the big idea is super important, but then it's also, what are the other ideas or other people that you're, partnering with afterwards that can help grow your community and, sustain you for the long run in your business. So yeah, good job.
Yeah, thank you, Lexi. Billy, you are second reader on this one.
I don't know a lot about putting a book together. It seems really tedious process. I thought that the artists got a really cool website, and what they're putting together is pretty cool. The timeline, I was only concerned about the timeline just because it seemed like, and this is, I don't know too much about putting books together, but it seemed like a lot of investigative journalism and moving around. And I don't like, even though it's week by week, I was wondering if there was going to be hidden costs in that, or what all that details, as far as like, does that mean are you stationary? Are you moving? If you are moving around to meet those deadlines, like what all does that entail? But the timeline to me, like if it's followed, it seems like to be completed on time. But it seemed like extremely tedious to me. It didn't seem like a lot of space for it seemed like it was just really constant. So. But I mean, maybe that's how it is with a book, creating a book. It's not my forte. As far as community engagement, like I said, a lot of investigative journalism, real exploratory. The applicant realizes they need to take notes from already established entities in the same field in order to acquire the same abilities and benefits from similar creative works. I think I think the applicant knows what to do. It's really exploratory. So when you set something out, so if you're exploring something, new land, and you set too many things out, it's like that could take away from the exploration. And I'm concerned with what would that mean, and maybe it need to loosen up a bit in certain areas. So specifically with the timeline, but yeah. I thought it was a good applicant.
Great. Thanks, Billy. Any additional comments from folks?
I thought that the applicant did a very good job. Darren and I have been echoing making things time bound and the importance of doing some things from a grant perspective, just as a point of measure, so you can capture yourself. Not to hold yourself to, but since it is a comic that they're trying to make, I would recommend, I put in the additional section, not in the grant itself, that there's so many comic conventions that actually come through Indiana. And I encourage them to explore presenting there. Just even this week or last week, it was the Indiana Comic Convention. Definitely to build upon what they're trying to do from a community aspect, that they should present, or definitely walk around the network, since this is eventually the arena that they want to be in. And there, like I said, there are a couple of comic conventions that they'll come to Indiana, and specifically Indianapolis.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, take a second to finalize this application. And Shapeman, if you bring Liam back from panelist purgatory. All right, welcome back, Liam. No snacks in the waiting room, I'm afraid. So we're glad to have you back. Let's see. Our next applicant is McKenya Dilworth. Liam, we're glad you're back because you're the first reader on this application. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I already was able to pull it up because I know I was next and leading this one off. So we'll just keep the train going down the track. I loved this application. I probably am a little partial because of the reference to August Wilson. I am from Pittsburgh originally, and I know well his century cycle. So I just think this is a great project idea. There's clear intention and one that should be heard. I would suggest when sending out the trilogy, be sure to send it to Dr. Lozana Kazembe here in Indianapolis at IUPUI. I think he would be a great contact and very much appreciate the work that you're doing. The timeline is reasonable, as is the budget. And I think there are clear plans for engaging the local community because these plays are meant to be a reflection of their life experiences.
Right. Thank you, Liam. Let's see, Adrian, you are second reader for this one.
I enjoy this application. I agree with Liam. I thought it was a very good application. I thought it was on course in terms of measuring out their timeline and making good use of time along the way in terms of using the community to make sure that the work was engaged, which I think is very good, especially since they were trying to make sure that the colloquial voicing was used. So the fact that you're bringing the community in to make sure that it's authentic, I thought was very, very good. The only thing that I had was overall printing costs and postage costs in terms of submitting for the festivals, as well as entry fees to potentially what they may submit. But I thought their target of where they want to send it was very well. And those are just nitpicky things. Those aren't things that I think are ding the application as well. I just want to push the applicant to think about that. But I enjoyed the application and thought it was very good.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Any additional comments from the panel on this one? Okay, well, hearing none, take a second if you would and finalize your comments on McKenya Dilworth, please. And our next applicant is Peter James Kaminsky. So if you would pull, everyone would get that one in front of them. Darren, you're first reader on that one, so whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, the narrative on this one is very compelling, but maybe a little tricky to navigate given the creative use of language. It's a really good indicator of the creative spirit of the applicant, but for grant writing purposes, often concise, declarative, even technical language is easier for a grant reviewer to understand on first reading. I was ultimately able to understand the project and the goals, but it took a couple of readings to really get to the heart of it. So a little more clear and concise, even with the creative language, would make it a little easier to understand. The samples and resume I thought were very compelling. The timeline was good, but again, I like to have seen some specific dates. The budget could have been much stronger with more detail. Would like to have seen, for instance, what make and model of printer, how much ink, how much paper, how many copies of that much ink and paper produce, and a breakdown of the travel expenses. How far are you going? Where are you going? How much is each trip? These details help the reviewer better understand the real feasibility of the project. And in terms of community engagement, there's a good narrative about how the applicant would use community engagement, but there's not a lot of detail about what that would look like, how it would be implemented. So the goal, the larger narrative is good, but lacking sort of mode and method make it a much stronger application. Those are my comments.
Great, Darren, thank you. Any additional comments from the panel on this application?
This is just to add fun to the moment. I think Darren is he's my brain. I mean, we share a brain.
Thanks, Adrian. Other comments? Other comments from the panel? Okay, well, hearing none. Take a second and finalize any scores for Peter James Kaminsky. Our next application is Raymar Brunson. If everyone would pull that application up, and Billy, you are the reader for that application. So whenever you're ready. Hey, Billy, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I like this applicant's imagination. I wasn't 100% clear on how they were going to use the goals, like as far as using part of the goal idea was to use multiple talented individuals in the project. And if there was a little bit more clarity on that, on exactly how that was going to happen. I mean, I know that's kind of more of the long-term goals. Honestly, for what's needed for this as far as feasibility, it seems realistic for a music video. I shot a lot of music videos, but music videos can be really really expensive, especially when it comes to adding a lot of different people and props and hiring the staff and stuff. So I would be with the type of with the size of the magnitude of what I believe the applicant is trying to do, I would definitely pay attention to what, just like travel accommodations and even costumes and stuff. Like the price of that can skyrocket quick. I would look into a lot of, I would look into donations and thrifting and trying to get a lot of, when it comes to a music video, if you get a lot of cameos and a lot of free stuff, that can really, really help the cause. And I think that a lot of that can come about with a lot of creative ways with working with the community, like even a fundraiser for the video to combine with it or whatnot, some ideas like that, and kind of building some character around up into building the video with the community as far as community engagement, some ideas that surround leading up to the video, during the video, and after. But yeah, I think those are kind of the only things that popped out to me.
Thank you. Thanks, Billy. Any additional comments from panelists on this one? Okay, hearing none, take a second, if you would, and finalize any comments you might have for this applicant. And our next application is Terrence Charnard. And Terrence, my apologies if I have mispronounced your last name. Take a second and pull that application up. And Adrian, you are first reader for that one.
Yes. I think I applaud Terrence. One, because I believe that it's really good to want preserve this particular art form and engage the community to make them, you know, a part of the plan where they take ownership in preserving this particular art form. Here's where I was a little challenged. I wasn't quite sure if the actual application was to cover the cost of making a hardbound business plan as a result of the work that's produced, or what. I just wasn't kind of clear. on that in terms of the application. So with that in mind, I probably need clarity there, and it's probably there, and it just was an oversight on my part. I do think as it relates to that just having the business plan alone won't help the applicant accomplish the goal, but it will be the pathway to discussions to help them achieve the particular goal. So, maybe that was the intent. I do think as it relates to the feasibility, that the applicant can better define, how many anticipated pages are part of the manuscript, which leads to the cost of the production, as well as better define what is within the travel. And with respect to the shipping, how, what is being shipped, what does this cover in terms of postage? Just a little bit more definition to the feasibility, as well as I would recommend that the applicant really put their community efforts in sectors, right? While it's not fully explained in the community section, in some of the thought section before, you can tell that the applicant wants to approach community leaders. They want to approach business investors, as well as engage the community, a target community, to participate in the actual print shop and maintain them. So with respect to that in the application, I would recommend that they put a plan that engages each community section and how each section should be reached, and then create a value proposition as to why there should be buy-in and support this phenomenal idea.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Lexi, you are a second reader on this one.
Yeah, just to echo some of Adrian's thoughts, just some clarity I had in my notes would be awesome, just in terms of, the center that you want to build. Love the idea and love the passion behind wanting to, go after something as big as that. But just the types of questions, running a studio space, how is it rented out? Are tenants paying per month? Is that based off of, is that the culmination of the manuscript? So just some details like that with clarity were some of my notes as well. But I love the plan of action and the types of community involvement. Sound like what better way to do that than to have a physical space where you can bring people together. So good job.
Thanks, Lexi. Any additional comments from panelists on this application? Okay, hearing none, take a second if you would and finalize your comments for this application, which is the last application for On-Ramp Local that the panel is reviewing today. So I'm going to ask panelists if you're able to hang with us after we go off broadcast. We will talk a little amongst ourselves about suggestions that you've got for us related to the process. But want to thank everyone who's tuning in now on YouTube for being with us. And this concludes the On-Ramp Local Fellowship 2021 Northwest Indiana Cohort Panel Discussion. Thanks, everybody.